I got a really scary message from a friend today. I had messaged her to say, hey, I hope you had a great birthday yesterday. And, we've talked about some of the things happening in the States, but I wasn't going to bring anything up right now because it's her freaking birthday weekend, right? And she replied back, yeah, I'm at a wine festival with my husband. We're having a great time. And I was like, that's fantastic. I hope you have a great day. And she sent back, you too. P.S. Please, if you can help it, don't come back here. And wow. So I haven't talked to her in a month or so. But what's interesting about this is that she and her husband actually supported Trump. And I don't think they really liked him. I don't think they really thought like he's a good person, but they supported his policies. They felt like he was the better man for the job in the 2020 election. Yeah, it was 2020 election because I was at their house and we were talking about it. And Trump has always scared me, but they're my friends. They treat me well, and I wasn't going to change their mind about anything. So, but yeah, she was a Trump supporter, and the last time I talked to her, she was pretty scared. And they're not survivalists, they're not preppers, they're not into the QAnon conspiracy theories or anything like that. Like, she's a very rational human being. She's has been a business owner multiple times in her life. She's a successful, rational, logical human being. And she's telling me, don't come back. Don't come back to the States. And I'm going to talk to her next week and find out exactly what she's seeing because, it's just hard. It's just very hard being in, well, obviously, if I was there, I would kind of know a little bit more. I would have a feel for what's going on. But, the news is so skewed. And then, I will cherry pick what I watch on YouTube because I want to be informed. But I also just can't like overload myself. And then sometimes I go down rabbit holes and overload myself anyway. But but I'm aware the entire time that like, I don't know if what I'm seeing is like the real truth or it's very skewed. I know I saw something the other day where Jon Stewart of The Daily Show was calling out MSNBC and CNN for skewing their stuff, just like Fox. I mean, they're all like so skewed. And, you know, I, I didn't specifically leave the US like because of Trump. But I don't know, I kind of did. Like I had a really strong intuitive push to leave the U.S. and come to Mexico. And shortly after that was when the election really got crazy. Like the election really started heating up and getting really wacky with the assassination attempts, which I don't believe. Um, yeah, but I had one friend who really got into the QAnon stuff, and that was the end of that friendship. I wish her well, but at the point that she started talking down to me like I was stupid for not believing the conspiracies, that's when I'm like, you believe what you want, but you're not going to tell me I'm dumb for believing what I believe. And if she texted me something like this, I would be like, oh well, she watches a lot of crazy shit. Like, like I'm not really going to take that, seriously. And if it was somebody who was like some of my, really liberal friends, right, that are like, I'm an independent. I think that both sides have some good ideas, and I think the extremists on both sides should just, if we could just shut the fuck up, the people on the extremes at the ends listening, the rest of us could figure it out. But yeah, if it was one of my like super liberal friends that had sent me this, it also wouldn't have shaken me up as much because obviously, their party isn't in control of the country right now. So obviously they're not happy. But like I said, this is, somebody who I would describe her as like a right leaning independent, where I'm more of a left leaning independent. But she's certainly not an extremist on any level, and she did support Trump at one point, and she's really scared. At this time, I said, "Are you guys leaving?" And she said, "No, we're just going to hunker down here." And her husband's pretty buck wild, so I imagine they've probably got ammo and guns, and are just going to like try to ride it out. But as much as I miss home, and I do, there were some really wonderful things about the U.S. I know that the reason my intuition told me to leave was because I mean, my anxiety has been off the charts in the last 6 months, like worst anxiety that I've had in years. And if I was in the U.S. and like in that tension, between like grown adults calling each other names, like grown adults, one side who claims that they're Christian and the other side that says that they're all peace and light and love, and they're all screaming at each other and calling each other names and bullying each other, and I'm just like, this is dumb, this is really dumb. But beyond being dumb, like it's a precursor to civil war. And I hope I'm wrong. I know I'm not the only one who's seeing this. I've seen some interviews with experts that are saying that we have a lot of the pre-existing conditions that happened before civil wars. And again, I don't know specifically what made my friend say that. Now, she did say something similar when we talked a couple months ago, and she was one of the people that thought I was nuts for coming to Mexico. Not because it's Mexico, but because I don't speak the language. I had never been here, and I didn't know anybody here. But after things started really getting nuts in the U.S., she was like, "No, you were right. You were good to be there." And when we talked, she said, "Yeah, I'm glad you're there. Stay." But we were having a long conversation about how, things were going in the US and it looked kind of crazy and, yada, yada. Today was completely unprompted. So I'll talk to her next week. I'll find out what it is that specifically is, concerning her right now. What concerns me is that the only way that what the Trump administration is doing, and actually, I read a really good post. It was attributed to Dr. King's daughter, MLK's daughter, I believe. But it was talking about one of the things is like, don't call the president by name. Don't give him that attention. Call him 47. And also, when talking about the craziness that's happening in the US government right now, don't attribute it all to him because he has a lot of power, but the only reason he has power is because people are going along with him. And so one of the suggestions was don't call him by name and say the truth. Say the truth. This is the Republican Party, it's the Republican administration that's doing this. And that does two things. It takes, the orange idiot's name out of it, so he's not getting that ego boost. And it also, shows Republicans like, look, we're looking at y'all. Like, this is your guy. Do something, right? Where was I going with that? Yeah, so the only way that this Republican administration's actions make any sense, they're taking the stock market. He's made enemies out of our allies. He's allied strongly with Russia. Like, they're not getting tariffs. And let me say, I don't have the patience to go checking a bunch of different news sources, so I may not have everything 100% right. But I know that he is causing a lot of civil unrest. He is picking fights with neighbors. He's starting trade wars. I know some of the things I've heard Canada's prime minister say, I think it was prime minister, sounded, like they're like, bring it on. Like we could have a real war if you want one. And I think China has said something similar. And it's madness. Like, it's not even like make America great again. Like, none of this is going to make America great again. And so the only way it makes any sense is I have two theories, and they absolutely could be two hypotheses, and they absolutely could be both true, right? The first is that he knows that he lost the 2020 election. He knows that he did. And it came out in the January 6th hearings that, people close to him, he had conversations where he made it very abundantly clear that he knew that he lost that presidential race fair and square. He just wasn't going to admit it publicly, and he was going to do everything he could to have it overturned. And the reason he can't stop dissing Joe Biden is because he knows that Joe Biden beat him. And Joe Biden beat him by a larger margin in the presidential race than we've had in a long time. Like, he only won by maybe 2% of the vote this time. And all of our other presidential races for years have been really, really close. And yeah, he knows Joe Biden beat him. So that's why he's pissed. That's why he keeps talking shit about this man that's not in office anymore. Plus, scapegoating. But, I think he knows, I know that he knows that he lost that race. And I think that this time being in office isn't about making America great again, even if it ever was. It's definitely not now. It's about tearing down the country that rejected him in a narcissistic temper tantrum. That's one hypothesis, and I think there's a lot of evidence for that. The second one is that he is trying to start a war any way he can. He's already declared wartime powers in this whole thing with, kicking people out of the country without due process. I really think that he's trying to start a war, whether it's with another country, whether it's, United States citizens against each other, whatever. He just wants a war because at that point, he can declare wartime powers and become the dictator that he has always wanted to be. So at the time I'm filming this, it's April 19th, and there's rumors that he may try to declare not really martial law, but something close to it. Martial law would actually, I think, from what I was watching, would give power to the military, which he doesn't want. But this other thing would give him power, would give him the dictatorship that he's always wanted. And, at this point, I've been saying, I'm an expat, I'm a digital nomad. And I was making a joke since last summer that I'm an American refugee. And that's really what it feels like, because I can't, that's not my America. That's not my home. And I can't live in that type of environment. I'm just grateful that I renewed my passport last year, and I have still 9 years left on my passport to figure it out. But I'm going to research this some more. But I saw a couple of videos last night talking about all the countries that are kicking Americans out, and people that have lived in Canada for years, for instance, and all of a sudden they're being told that they have to go home, like they're not going to be able to get resident status. So yeah, it's an interesting time to be a U.S. citizen, and I don't know. I've got a couple things that I do need to go back to the States to get straightened out, but. I know other people have been far more vocal, but just a little bit that I've put out on YouTube, I worry that if I try to come in, they're going to be like, well, we know that you don't support the administration, either not let me in or immediately lock me up, and I don't think that's paranoia. I think that's just reading the room and looking at possibilities. But yeah, that's I'm dog sitting this weekend. I've got some really cute dogs that I'm hanging out with, and so I'm grateful for that. And I'm going to be going to Peru in a little less than a month, and I'm grateful for that. And but yeah, I gotta talk to my friend next week. I hope she's able to just have some wine and enjoy her weekend. But something has got her really spooked, and it may just kind of be all the things. But yeah, what do you guys think? Like, are you hunkering down? Are you worried at all? Are you looking at going to another country? I need to make a video because they have changed the tourist visas here in Mexico, which is one of the reasons why I'm going to Peru instead of just doing a border run, a visa run, and going across to another country and getting another stamp on my visa, because I probably won't get 6 months this time, and I want to get somewhere where I can kind of like chill for a bit. So I don't know. I'll tell you more about that later, but I hope you're having a great weekend. Let me know your thoughts, and stay safe. Take care of yourself. Take care of your families.